Shalom Aleichem again, and Bruchim Habayim to Kol Haro Yerushalayim, our weekly Sunday morning shir. B'siyata d'shmaya, we had a wonderful series of Hilchos Kivud Avayim. We came to an end in the meantime. Baruch Hashem, we got tremendous feedback. Many people told us about the unbelievable hisoirus, the chizuk they got from this wonderful shir, that they were able to go through these halachas together with myself and all the listeners in regards to Kivud Avayim, all the wonderful shailas and all the chizuk for this wonderful mitzvah, how to go and be able to be mechabed our parents so much better, and b'siyata d'shmaya our children also will continue to be mechabed us wonderfully. So upon the request of some of the listeners, they said, can you please continue the series in the halachas of Tzedakah and Ma'aser Ksafim? Wonderful halachas, Tzedakah and Ma'aser Ksafim, something which is also applicable to every person, every single day, sometimes a few times a day. And these halachas, of course, some of them are well known, some of them are not as well known, similar to Kivud Avayim. But of course, when we go over them together, we will definitely be mechazik in these halachas, and we will get clear some of the things that we were not so sure about in the past. This is the first of the series, and therefore, like we try to do always, we give a little bit of a short hakdama, some type of introduction to the wonderful idea and the mitzvah of tzedakah. So we know like this, that tzedakah, like I said, like we're starting to say, is something which everybody is familiar with. Baruch Hashem, there's so many people in the world that have a tremendous amount of shefa, tremendous amount of wealth. One of the things we know that when we're coming to learn about the practical halachas of Hilchos Tzedakah and Ma'aser Ksafim is that many people also have a third thing that comes along when we discuss these halachas, and that's called emunah. Emunah is something which is so important while going through these halachas. And why is that? It's because many people who are blessed with wealth, and even if not blessed with wealth, but come across these halachas, some of the basic halachas that we see over here in Yoredea, starting from Siman Reish Mem Zayin and continuing a bunch of Simanim later, we see so many obligations that could come up that we wouldn't have thought that we were obligated to do. And when we think about it, many times the Yetzer Hara tells us, it's very hard to part from money, it's very hard to give away so much. Maybe I'm not really obligated to give so much, and even if I am, I'm not sure if right now I could do that. And therefore we're faced with the challenge of emunah, believing that really everything we have is not from us. Everything we have is from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. When we give it from our pocket and put it to someone else's pocket, that is our avodah. To put it from our pocket and to give it to another Jew's pocket. As we see in so many halachas that are brought in over here, and so many cases that we find in Gemara and all the different stories that people have said over about themselves and the experiences that people had, many of it came from chizuk in emunah, understanding that whatever I have is not really mine. Now, of course, we have to mention, and we know that we hear this all the time, we all say how we know that we're all shluchim. Many times we say this, we know we're just messengers, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu is just depositing by us things. But when it comes down to it, we have to be able to put that thing into Lamaisa. We have to be able to go and say that we're not just messengers, we know that we are, but we're messengers, and therefore we give it over to other people as much as we can, when we can, and of course, al pi halacha, how often we have to do it, and how much we should do it. One thing is for sure, is that when you open up the halachas of Hilchos Tzedakah, you see in Yoredea and Reish Mem Zayin, like I said, Siman Reish Mem Zayin in Yoredea, you look in the first few sifim, and you see over there unbelievable things. You see that mitzad echad, we see that there's halachas of if a person doesn't give tzedakah, is he transgressing any prohibitions in the Torah? That's one shaila. Every time a person comes into the shul and asks for tzedakah, I have to give him. We'll discuss that b'siyata d'shmaya in the coming weeks. But that's one shaila that comes up. Another thing that we see unbelievable, that Chazal praised a person who goes and gives tzedakah, he will never become poor from giving tzedakah. An unbelievable thing. It's a mefurish halach in Shulchan Aruch. It's brought down over there in Yoredea, Siman Reish Mem Zayin Sif Beis. A person, we never found that people went and gave their tzedakah and became poor from it. Of course, like we'll go through b'siyata d'shmaya in the future, the geder, what exactly does that mean? Who has to give? How much do they have to give? How often they have to give? But for sure that someone who gives never became poor. And like we said, let's go back for a second to this idea of emunah, giving from hand to hand. Unbelievable story came up with Rav Chana Wasserman. Rav Chana Wasserman, Zecher Tzadik Levracha, was the Baal Kovet Shiurim. He was the Rosh Hashiva of Baranovich Yeshiva in Europe, and he was also from the prized Talmidim of the Chavetz Chaim. He used to go and travel to Chutz La'aretz many times to go and upkeep his yeshiva in Baranovich in those days. Unbelievable story happened with him. One time he came to a certain community, and of course the Rav afterwards came over to him and told him, apologetic. He said, I'm sorry, I'd see that the Rosh Hashiva wasn't so pleased, that's what it looks like. You were not so pleased, and because of the turnout of what the Mispalim gave you, it didn't seem like they gave you enough from their possessions and the tzedakah, and therefore I feel bad, I'm sorry. And right away he looked at him and he told the Rav, what are you sorry about? He said, we know that in the Torah, B'Tzalel ben Uri, he was asked to go and build the Mishkan. Right? When Moshe Rabbeinu, as the Medrash says, came around and was looking for somebody to go and build the Mishkan, and went, let's say, to Reuven ben Yaakov Avinu and Shimon ben Yaakov Avinu, and they said, no, we're not building the Mishkan. We're not building the Mishkan. The ones who weren't building the Mishkan, you think Moshe Rabbeinu was sad that they weren't the ones? How could he be sad? He knows that there was the Gzeira Mishamayim. HaKadosh Baruch Hu was goizer that B'Tzalel ben Uri, he's the one who's going to have the schus to go and build the Mishkan. So Rabbi Chana Wasserman looked at this Rav and told him, he said, I have no complaints over here. There's no problem over here at all. I believe that any person who gives tzedakah, that person has to have first the schus to give the tzedakah. HaKadosh Baruch Hu decides who is the one who's going to have the schus, who's going to have the merit to give the tzedakah. Not that sometimes we find that people say, I feel bad, this guy came to my house, or this Rosh Hashiva came over, I'm not sure, I didn't really have the strength to give him, or I didn't have the opportunity to give him. It doesn't always mean that a person really is speaking ke'ilu, he had the efsharut, that he was able to go and control the situation. He has to realize that in order to be able to be a giver, you have to have the schus. And like we said before, to be a giver, you never lose. I don't make it up. This is something that the Shulchan Aruch says. A person never became poor from giving tzedakah. Unbelievable chizuk, and of course, we have to strengthen in emunah to believe this, to actually be able to practice it. It's not so simple, but it's definitely something that after we learn it and we go over it again and again, it definitely gives us strength, and we have to internalize that definitely nobody will lose out by giving so much as they can. We just want to end off with one short thing in the Akdama. The Dubner Magid said that a mashal, he gave a mashal, right? The Dubner Magid gave a mashal, a special mashal of somebody who was on a boat, and it was getting very windy, and things were on the way, they were shaky, and the Dubner Magid said that they had to decide, we have to throw things off in order to go and make the boat be stable. So some of the people right away started throwing off the talis and the tefillin, instead of throwing off the merchandise. And all of a sudden, somebody came and saw them and said, what are you doing? Why are you getting rid of all this weight of the things that we need? This is our lifeline. How come you have to get rid of the merchandise? And the people looked at him and said, what are you talking about? If we get rid of all this stuff, so we're not going to have any wealth, we're not going to have any money. And he told them, what are you talking about? The whole wealth is coming about because we daven to Hashem. And now that you gave away the tefillin and the talis, we don't have it. And that is exactly, says the Dubner Magid, what happens with us. Many times we see that things are going down. Let's say a person is not being matzliach in business right now, or he hopefully will be in the future, but right now he's going through a hard time. So he thinks right now is the best time to stop tzedakah. Right now I'm going to stop tzedakah. But the Dubner Magid says, no, not at all. When you're in a time when you need chizuk even more, continue to give. Of course, if you have the means for it, or of course, if you could work it out as best as you can. Obviously, you can't give if you have zero. But if you're not holding there, and you're holding in a place where you can give, of course, definitely don't get rid of the tools. Don't get rid of the lifeline. The lifeline is something which is keeping us going. Many Gedolim said we never knew what exactly gave us the lengthy years, the Arichas Yom Mishanim. Many times we did chasadim with so many Jews, and because we did that, we don't know who is keeping who alive. Many times also, we see the same thing about tzedakah. A person gives tzedakah, it's unbelievable to know how many people are relying on you. And if therefore there's so many people that are relying on you, we never know from where the schusim that we have, the wealth that we have, how come HaKadosh Baruch Hu chose us. And this is unbelievable things that we have to try to internalize. Of course, we need to go and be mechazek, always in the idea of Amunah, and try to believe that Be'emes HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to continue to give us a tremendous amount of shefa. So B'siyata D'Shmaya, we'll continue next week in the more practical level of the halachas of tzedakah, who is obligated, how much you're obligated to, and if somebody comes to you in the middle of shul, do you have to give them, how much should you give them, and many examples like this. Everyone should have a great day. Thank you all for listening, and thank you all for starting this wonderful series.